The room waits the way it always has. Light thinned by dust, air held in place. Nothing moves, yet everything feels arranged as if the moment never finished happening. A chair still angled wrong, a mark on the floor that never learned to fade. I stand where I stood before and feel time hesitate. The case never left this room. It only learned how to stay quiet. That is how it begins again, without ceremony, without sound, the past breathing softly behind the walls. In 2001, this space was processed, measured, logged, and sealed. Then it was forgotten by everyone except the paper. Now the paper has asked me back. I unlock the door without urgency. The sound is small, metallic, too loud for a place like this. The smell comes first. Old wood, cardboard, a trace of cleaning solution that tried and failed to erase something unnamed. I do not move far. I let the room settle around me. Evidence is like memory. It does not like to be rushed. Her name was Maribel Henson, 23. She grew up outside Cedar Rapids, the kind of place where roads straighten themselves and winters teach patience. She worked mornings at a print shop and nights tutoring students who needed quiet help. She collected postcards from places she had never visited. She wrote notes in pencil because ink felt final. That detail stayed with me. It still does. I returned to the desk. It was catalogued once but never truly read. Files swell with time, corners soften, paper absorbs the weight of years. I open the first folder and hear the sound I remember most clearly, pages separating, dry, reluctant. The report language is careful, procedural, almost kind in its restraint. It describes the scene as orderly. It avoids interpretation. It pretends the room explained itself. I remember believing that too. There is a photograph clipped inside, slightly crooked. The angle is wrong, like the person behind the camera did not want to look too long. The light is flat. It shows a shelf, a plant, a framed postcard, the postcard again. I missed that before. Or maybe I noticed it and let it go. Evidence has a way of asking twice. I sit. The chair complains softly. I make a note I do not need to make. The silence presses, then loosens. In 2001, we thought the answer would announce itself. We believed clarity followed effort. We did not yet understand how quiet logic could be. A second file holds statements, short, fragmented, people remembering without confidence. A neighbor recalls footsteps. Another recalls nothing at all. One line is underlined not by me. She mentioned someone from the past. No name, no follow-up. The underline feels accusatory now. It waited. I close my eyes and smell paper again. Dust and something faintly sweet like old glue. My thoughts do not race. They line up. That has always been my way. Emotion arrives later after the work is done. Or so I used to think. Did she seem afraid? A voice asks in the margin of my memory. No, another answers uncertain. That was the problem. Fear leaves marks. Comfort does not. I move to the evidence cabinet. It opens with effort. Inside, items rest in clear bags labeled with dates that feel heavier than they should. A key ring, a receipt, the pencil. I hold the bag up to the light. The pencil is worn flat on one side, habit, pressure. She pressed hard when she wrote. I imagine her hand, steady, deliberate. I imagine nothing else. Speculation is a luxury. In the corner, a box I remember but never opened myself. It contains copies of postcards enlarged. At the time, we logged them as personal effects. Now I see the sequence. Same town, same postmark year after year. She never traveled there, but she kept the image close. The place mattered. The town is small, even by Iowa standards. 2 streets that cross without ceremony, a water tower, a print shop. In 1997, Maribel spent a summer there, working with a community arts program. It is in her resume, not her statements. I read it then. I did not connect it. Logic does not shout. It waits to be noticed. Another file. Financial records. Boring, clean, unremarkable, except for one recurring transfer, small, regular, labeled with initials. Not a bill, not a salary, a gesture. It stopped 6 months before the incident. That timing mattered then. It matters more now. I find the interview transcript last. The one I avoided. A man, older, careful with his words. He knew her once. Not closely, he said. He remembered her handwriting. He mentioned the pencil. I marked it as coincidence. I should not have. Just checking in, he said, from time to time. The phrase repeats across years of paper. Checking in, postcards, transfers, the same town. None of it is dramatic. That is why it worked. I stand again and feel the room release a fraction. The mistake was not what we saw. It was what we assumed would matter. We waited for disruption. We missed continuity. Outside, the light has shifted. Inside, nothing has changed, yet the shape of the case is different. I gather the files without ceremony. My hands are steady. That surprises me. Guilt used to arrive faster. As I leave, I look back once. The room does not respond. It never does. Evidence does not forgive. It only waits to be read correctly. I drive north with the files sealed beside me, the road narrow and obedient, the fields flattened by winter. The car hums the same way it did years ago, a sound that invites thinking without permission. Every mile subtracts noise. Every mile adds clarity. By the time the town sign appears, I already know why we failed. We trusted disruption. We ignored routine. The town is smaller than memory allows. One traffic light paused in yellow longer than necessary. Brick storefronts with names painted directly onto the glass. I park across from the community center where the arts program once lived. The building has changed hands, not purpose. Inside, the floors creak in familiar places. Paper signs announce classes. The smell is varnish and old heat. I ask for records without urgency. The woman at the desk recognizes the tone. She brings out a box without comment. Inside, attendance lists, budgets, photographs. I move slowly. Photographs lie the easiest. Faces align in rows, smiling with effort. There she is, Maribel, younger, lighter, holding a stack of flyers. Next to her, a man angled toward her, attentive without warmth. His name appears on a staff list. Owen Klein, program coordinator. Stayed 3 summers, left without explanation. I photograph the page and thank the woman. She nods, already forgetting me. That is how it works here. Memory is local. Outside, the air cuts cleanly. I sit in the car and open the old interview transcript again. Owen Klein, the careful voice, the habit of noticing handwriting, the transfers labeled with initials that match his own. Logic assembles without ceremony. He did not arrive suddenly. He faded back in. Postcards are not declarations, they are maintenance. Transfers were not payments, they were reassurance. When they stopped, something shifted, not an argument, a recalibration. Comfort withdrawn is louder than confrontation. I request updated financial records through the proper channels. The response arrives faster than expected. Owen Klein stayed local, different town, same state, employment steady, no disruptions. He married, he divorced, routine again. A recent purchase stands out. A storage unit rented the month before the case reopened. People do not rent space without reason. The unit smells of cardboard and oil. The lock resists once, then gives. Inside, boxes stacked with care. Labels in pencil, dates. I do not open everything. I choose one box that feels deliberate. Inside, postcards, not hers, copies, enlarged. Notes on the back, measurements, arrows, not sentimental, analytical. He studied her objects as if they were instructions. A notebook rests beneath. Pages filled with observations. Times, routes, weather. The language is calm, detached. It records proximity as if it were an experiment. The final entry ends abruptly. No conclusion, no explanation. The absence feels decisive. I sit on the concrete floor and let the air settle. This is not revelation. It is alignment. Every small detail points the same way. Not passion, not chaos. Familiarity misused. I photograph everything and reseal the boxes. Procedure matters. Emotion can wait. Back in the office, I lay the materials across the table. The room listens. I call for a review. Voices gather, measured, professional. Questions are asked. Answers are precise. No one raises their tone. That is how agreement forms. Warrants follow language, not volume. When they bring him in, he looks the way he always has in the records. Neat, contained. He sits without instruction, hands folded. He speaks when prompted, stops when interrupted. He does not deny connection. He minimizes its weight. Just checking in, he says, then corrects himself. Used to. I slide the notebook forward. He studies it as if seeing it for the first time. His breath changes, slightly, enough. Silence stretches. It does not accuse, it waits. That handwriting, someone says gently. He nods once, recognized it. The process moves forward. Forms, signatures, the mechanical steps of resolution. Outside, the day continues without commentary. The town does not gather. Shock travels quietly here, absorbed by distance and habit. I return to the room where it began, not because I must, but because I need to finish the circuit. The light is thinner now. Dust floats with intention. I stand where I stood and feel no triumph, only completion of a task delayed too long. Justice, when it arrives, does not repair. It organizes. It files away what remains. Maribel's postcards will never return to their original purpose. Her pencil will stay flat on one side. The room will remain a room. As I close the door, I understand what lingers. Not failure, not relief. Responsibility. Evidence does not forgive, but it does respond. It waits for patience. It waits for someone willing to listen to quiet things. The paperwork closes the way all paperwork does, with a soft sound that suggests nothing is ending. Dates align. Signatures settle. Systems confirm themselves. Somewhere, a database updates, and the case changes status. That word carries weight only inside offices. Outside, it dissolves into weather and errands and the slow patience of fields. I walk through the corridor one last time, past rooms that hold other unfinished shapes. Fluorescent lights hum with even resolve. A cart rattles. Someone laughs briefly, then stops. Work continues because it must. I carry nothing now. The files remain where they belong, indexed, cross-referenced, contained. Evidence prefers containment. So do people. Later, alone, I open my notebook and do not write. I rest my hand on the page and feel the texture. Paper is honest about resistance. It reminds you that effort leaves marks. I think of Maribel's pencil, flattened by habit. She pressed hard because she wanted clarity. That seems important. The town reacts in pieces. A mention in the local paper, factual, brief. A pause in conversations at the cafe, then a return to weather. Shock here does not announce itself. It integrates. People recalibrate their sense of familiarity and move forward without saying so. Routine absorbs almost everything. I receive a message from someone who knew her. Not well, she writes, just enough to remember the postcards. She liked places she could imagine, the message says. I read it twice. Imagining is not escape. It is rehearsal. That thought stays with me. At night, the room returns. Not as it was, but as it is now, stripped of expectation. I smell dust and cardboard. I hear the soft complaint of a chair. The memory does not accuse, it observes. That is the difference time makes. It removes urgency and leaves shape. We talk briefly about outcomes. about processes that move forward without commentary, about the comfort of procedure. Someone asks if it feels finished. I answer honestly. Finished is not the word I would choose. Aligned, perhaps, or accounted for. Those words fit better. They are less ambitious. The smallest detail still holds the most weight. A postcard kept too long. A transfer labeled casually. A recognition admitted without emphasis. None of it would convince alone. Together, they formed a quiet line that led back to the beginning. Logic does not need drama. It needs patience. I think about how easily familiarity can pass for safety, how consistency can disguise intent. We are taught to watch for disruption. We are not taught to question comfort. That lesson arrives slowly and usually late. In the archive, I request one item returned to storage with special care. The pencil. It will not be displayed. It will not be described beyond its label. It will remain an object, not a symbol. That matters. Objects should not be asked to carry more than they can. I drive past the house once more without stopping. The windows reflect sky. The lawn has been cut. Someone lives there now who did not then. That is how places heal. Not by remembering, but by continuing. I respect that. On my desk, a photograph lies face down. I turn it over when the light is right. Maribel looks towards something outside the frame, attentive, unafraid. The image does not answer questions. It does not need to. It confirms existence. That is enough. Justice completes its motions. Dates are set. Outcomes are recorded. The system performs as designed, efficient, impartial, clean. It does not grieve. It does not imagine. It moves forward because it must. What remains is quieter. The understanding that attention is a form of care. That listening is an action. That small details ask for respect, not urgency. The past does not demand correction. It asks for recognition. I close the notebook at last. The page is unmarked. My hand has left no visible trace. Some things do not need to be written to be carried. As I turn out the light, the room does not change. It never does. Time moves. Evidence waits. And somewhere between them, something human persists, unnamed, unresolved, still breathing in the silence. I return the keys to the clerk and step outside where the afternoon holds steady. Nothing announces completion. The building exhales routine. I pause because pauses matter, because they register the end of effort. Across the street, traffic moves with polite distance. I note the temperature, the angle of light, the way shadows refuse drama. This is how conclusions appear, unadorned, almost shy. The case has moved into records, into schedules, into the care of processes. My role narrows to witness. I accept that reduction without resistance, feeling neither relief nor triumph, only balance restored within me today, now here. Later, I sit at my desk and review nothing new. The habit persists. Screens glow, files sleep, clocks perform their small circles. I listen to the building breathe and consider what attention costs. It costs time. It costs certainty. It costs the comfort of assuming patterns announce themselves loudly. I write a single sentence, then delete it, preferring memory to ink. The lesson remains plain. Routine deserves scrutiny. Familiarity asks questions softly. Answers arrive when patience replaces urgency, when listening outweighs speaking. That balance steadies investigations and people alike today, without spectacle, noise, haste, fear, confusion, doubt, or pride ever. The community absorbs outcomes in its own manner. Conversations tilt, then level. Someone remembers a detail differently. Someone chooses not to remember at all. Both responses function. I do not correct them. Accuracy belongs to records now, not kitchens or sidewalks. Care takes another shape here. It looks like restraint. It sounds like weather. I pass the print shop where Maribel once worked mornings, the windows bright, the presses humming. Work continues. It always does. Continuation is not indifference. It is survival practice daily learned quietly together over time, without announcement, by neighbors, families, street seasons passing around us here. I think again about the smallest elements because they remain faithful. A label written carefully, a date repeated without flourish, a line item steady until it stopped. These were not warnings, just signals awaiting context. We failed by expecting alarms. We succeeded by listening to quiet persistence. That distinction matters beyond one case. It informs method. It humbles confidence. It teaches the value of slow review. I share this with younger investigators sparingly, without sermon, trusting experience to do the teaching later through mistakes, patience, observation, repetition, accountability, humility, earned slowly across years of careful service without shortcuts or bravado. At home, the evening arrives without urgency. I cook simply and eat standing, listening to nothing. The window shows fields dimming, edges softening. I consider the idea of closure and set it aside. Closure implies sealing. This feels more like placement, each piece returned to its shelf. The mind relaxes when objects belong. I sleep without dreams and wake early, alert, as if readiness is the final residue of work completed honestly, done carefully, without haste, spectacle, praise, or narrative flourish that might distract from responsibility learned and kept by those entrusted with attention for others lives daily here still. Morning brings routine messages and ordinary tasks. None reference the case. That absence confirms transition. I archive notes according to policy and leave the desk clear. Clarity helps movement. I take a longer route to work, passing silos and winter trees, practicing observation without purpose. This habit keeps edges sharp. Attention, once trained, seeks exercise. It notices patterns without forcing meaning. That discipline guards against projection. It respects evidence as it is, not as desired, and reminds investigators humility before facts assembled slowly through methodical, careful review, rather than impulse or expectation alone, built over time by patience consistently. I revisit the archive request and confirm the pencil's storage. It rests among items that taught us how to look. Objects instruct without speech. They insist on accuracy. They ask hands to slow down. I appreciate that. Symbols tempt excess. Objects resist it. They anchor thought to reality. In training sessions, I describe this gently, encouraging restraint. The room listens differently when expectations are lowered. Questions improve. Answers arrive cleaner. This is progress measured quietly, without charts or announcements, recognized internally by steadier outcomes and trust earned over years through consistent, careful practice, shared across teams daily without spectacle ever. The case surfaces briefly in my thoughts during quiet moments, not as scenes but as alignments. I recall the photograph's angle, the ledger's cadence, the notebook's restraint. These elements remain instructive. They confirm that harm hides inside familiarity when boundaries soften. Recognizing that truth does not harden me, it clarifies responsibility. Care requires vigilance without suspicion. That balance is difficult. It demands empathy paired with structure. I continue practicing it, imperfectly, daily, because vigilance strengthens systems and preserves dignity for everyone involved across time, places, contexts, without reducing people to data points or erasing complexity from human experience ever present. I meet briefly with colleagues to close administrative loops. The tone remains practical. No one seeks summary speeches. We exchange acknowledgments and move on. Efficiency honors time. Later, a junior analyst asks how I noticed the pattern. I answer simply, by reading twice. That advice sounds modest because it is. Repetition reveals structure. It exposes what continuity conceals. The analyst nods and returns to work. Learning travels quietly, person to person, through shared habits, patience, and respectful curiosity. that sustain institutions beyond individual cases, ensuring methods endure after names fade from headlines, memories, offices, and rooms over many years quietly. On a walk at dusk, I pass fields settling into shadow. The air smells clean and neutral. I think of Maribel's postcards and the imagined places they held. Imagination can be refuge or rehearsal. It depends on stewardship. I cannot resolve that ambiguity. I can respect it. People carry interior maps unknown to others. Investigation maps intersections, not interiors. Remembering this boundary prevents overreach. It keeps inquiry humane while remaining exact. That balance sustains trust between communities, investigators' records, and processes necessary for cooperation, understanding, and shared purpose across time after events conclude without spectacle or coercion ever again there. I receive confirmation that proceedings progress as scheduled. The language is standardized, calm. I acknowledge and archive. My attention returns to present tasks. This is not detachment, it is proportion. Work asks for presence, not possession. Carrying every outcome would collapse capacity. Instead, we learn to place weight where it belongs. Systems help with that. They distribute responsibility so no single person must carry everything alone, allowing sustainability, ethics, and accuracy to coexist within institutions serving diverse communities consistently, without exhausting individuals or eroding judgment through over-identification with outcomes that are collective by design and necessary for fairness overall. Occasionally, I consider what I would say if asked for meaning. I would keep it spare. I would say that careful attention honors people, that patience prevents error, that listening is an action. Beyond that, explanations risk embellishment. The facts suffice. They always have. The rest belongs to those who remember her personally in ways no record can hold. My role respects that separation. It protects memory from analysis and analysis from sentiment, so each remains intact and appropriate within its domain. Responsibilities, limits, and care as work continues forward daily, with humility and steadiness earned over time through practice. The night settles again without ceremony. I turn off lights and leave the office as I found it. Outside, the sky holds its ordinary depth. I breathe and notice the simple fact of continuation. Tomorrow will ask for attention again, and I will answer. That is the work, not endings but readiness, not closure but care. The case has taught me nothing new about people, only reminded me to listen longer than instinct prefers and patience allows, because answers arrive quietly when invited by steady attention, free of haste or desire for narrative resolution that simplifies reality and misleads us. I think once more of the room at the beginning. It remains unchanged because rooms remember differently than people. They keep shape, not story. That distinction comforts me. Stories bend, shapes persist. Evidence is shape. It resists interpretation until context aligns. When it does, the alignment feels inevitable, not dramatic. I respect that inevitability now. It does not diminish responsibility, it clarifies it. The work is to wait without neglect, to observe carefully, and act precisely. When sufficient information assembles naturally through time, diligence, and collective effort, shared across institutions, communities, and years, without shortcuts taken or assumptions made prematurely. As I leave the parking lot, the night air steadies my thoughts. Nothing presses for interpretation. The case has returned to its proper scale, one among many, each demanding the same care. Justice functions, measured and impersonal, yet it relies on human attention to operate at all. That paradox remains. I accept it. The work continues tomorrow and the day after, attentive, quiet, exact. Somewhere between systems and memory, something human persists, unresolved, breathing in silence, without announcement, without resolution, without finality. only presence, patience, and responsibility, remaining for those who listen carefully to quiet details, always waiting to speak.